Good evening and welcome to the August 3rd meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference. Please be patient. We'll do our best to be efficient and allow everyone to participate equitably. This meeting is also being broadcast and streamed online by FCTV in real time. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. I'd like to thank our staff, Jen, Alyssa, Josh, Mark, Amy, and Kristen, for their continued support to this commission and their diligence providing applicants with the assistance necessary to achieve a positive results on their application. And we're missing one commissioner who will probably show up late, make an entrance. So we're going to move forward anyway. And if you don't mind, let me remind you that for commenting, I'll call on each of you at the appropriate time. Let's refrain from speaking over each other. Also, all votes will be done by roll call. When I call your name, please state your name and your vote, even if you've made the motion or the second. And on that note, don't be shy about making a motion or a second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are located on the agenda. As per Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 regarding COVID-19, now allows for full public participation. Therefore, if you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. And regarding RDAs, as an applicant, you want to hear a negative determination as it allows you to move forward with your project without the necessity of a full notice of intent application. And all I have. We're going to start, oddly enough, with other business. We have a presentation by AMP Solar. Jen?
Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Attorney Terry up, who represents AMP Solar, and Matt, is it Andrew Shabbat I'm promoting up as well?
Yes, please.
Okay. And Andrew Shabbat with AMP Solar. And I just promoted Courtney up, so Courtney's in the house.
Okay.
All right, should we get going?
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I have Andrew Chabot with me from AMP Solar. He's going to take over and present in just a minute. We're here before you this evening. The AMP Solar is working on a project at the Cape Cod Country Club to potentially put some ground-mounted solar arrays on portions of the golf course. The current owner of the golf course is winding down operations and was looking to sell the property for a different use. And AMP has been working with the owner for a couple of years now on that acquisition. This is sort of the start of our formal permitting process. From here, we're going to go to the Board of Selectmen. We've been in discussions with them, the acting town manager and town council, around a non-binding memorandum of understanding. And that MOU is the initial structure around what we hope will be a fantastic partnership with the town of Falmouth, whereby AMP Solar, once they acquire the property and permit it, would donate all or a portion of the golf course to the town of Falmouth. One element of that donation would be a significant amount of conservation acreage, which is what brings us before you this evening. The donation would be subject to a ground lease with AMP for the lifetime of the solar arrays. And then after that, it would be either conservation land or unrestricted use for the town of Falmouth. So we wanted to come tonight to give a brief presentation, let you know what the project looks like, answer any questions you might have on an initial basis. And the hope would be that we could have the Conservation Commission's support when it comes to this project, as a portion of the acreage will hopefully someday soon be under the auspices of the Conservation Commission as permanently conserved acreage. So with that, I will hand it over to Andrew, who will tell you a little bit more about the project.
Great. Thanks so much, Matt. Let me just share my screen real quick. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Thanks for making the time. I will keep this brief. I certainly won't drone on. I only have about 5 or 6 slides or so to talk about here. So let me just dive in. So I think everyone can see my screen. Just quickly to give a quick history of AMP. You know, we are a renewable energy developer, most active in Massachusetts and New York. We've developed a multitude of projects on the community solar scale. Our mission, our goal is to develop primarily solar, usually paired with energy storage on site to help us transition to clean energy on the electric grid. So that's what we're hoping to do on this site. And fortunately, this was just sort of a good confluence of opportunity where the current landowner was looking to sell the property and in lieu of housing, opted to pursue solar. So that is the path we are on. This is essentially 3 parcels adjacent to Coonamessett Pond, which is the existing golf course, the Cape Cod Country Club. And we're hoping that this could be an opportunity that the town would be able to embrace, because this land would be put into, solar array, and then ideally, whatever the town sees as the best fit after the useful project life, whether that's conservation land or something similar. We've engaged pretty heavily with local stakeholder interactions to date, most notably with the Coonamessett Pond Association, amongst others. In our conversations with them, and to get their support and get them comfortable with the project and gather their feedback, there are several different stipulations we've agreed to with this project. Most notably is to pursue a land donation with the town, but also including things like water quality monitoring for the pond, establishing a trail network, and maintaining tree line setbacks alongside the pond itself, where the golf course is currently adjacent to. And, amongst other things, also as putting a pollinator meadow under the array to best serve other interstitial species that might be able to benefit from grassland. To just move on, this is a very, very rough, definitely not technical drawing, but something that I wanted to just show as kind of a very simplistic view of what the overlay is going to look like for this size system. You have to excuse me, kind of have to tilt your head to the left. North is that way. It wouldn't fit on this slide to do that way. But what we're looking at is the blue outlines are effectively the parcel boundaries that we are talking about here. There are 3 parcels. One, if you're looking at Round Pond right in the middle of the screen here, one directly north, one to the east of that, and then one south of Round Pond. The pink lines are essentially the fence line boundaries of the solar array that would be sitting within the fence line, and the red area is the setback from and no touch area for trees alongside the pond, in addition to maintaining trees that are outside of the largely outside of the pink fence line area, as long as they don't interfere with some of the shading for the array. Where we find ourselves right now is the progress to date is last year we had some heavy engagement with the CPA. We had the Falmouth town meeting on the 28th of June, where the town passed Articles 6 and 7, which allowed us to, with planning board approval, ideally be able to clear more than 2 acres of trees on one of these parcels if necessary, and also place the golf course within the solar overlay district within Falmouth. We then, did our homework and have been partnered with Cape and Islands Engineering, who's been a fantastic partner of ours. With them, went in front of you all back in April to discuss our notice of intent for the project and discuss some of the buildings that would be removed and the replanting that would happen within the 100-foot buffer of any wetlands. And how we hope this plays out moving forward is officially submitting to the Falmouth Planning Board on September 1st or on about then, ideally. And then that should, to my knowledge, be an automatic referral over to the Cape Cod Commission, which will begin its 6 to 9 month review process. Ideally, if that results in a positive outcome for us, then we would be able to then come back to the Falmouth Planning Board for their final review and hopefully have a positive outcome there, wrapping up, about a year after we start with the official submission. That is largely kind of what I wanted to start off with, but understand that you probably have a multitude of questions. Happy to dive into anything that's helpful. Just please let me know and I'll end it there. Stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Jen, do you want to begin?
I don't have any questions right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anybody have anything they want to ask? Betsy?
So I wasn't here. You might have said this when you did your NOI and I was giving a talk somewhere else that night. But I don't understand, Matt, in your introduction, I didn't quite get sort of what the role of conservation is. Are you confirming that when you leave, all this is going to be turned to conservation land? And do you want to know if we approve of that? Or are you saying it'll go to the town and maybe some of it will end up as conservation land? That was a little bit vague.
Sure, completely understood. And thank you for your question. It's a good one. And the opportunity to clarify. So we know that a portion of this property will be conserved. The 30 seconds on the Cape Cod Commission process, there's a mandatory obligation under the commission regulations to mitigate any clearing of existing forested acreage. And the obligation is probably somewhere between 2 to 3 acres required to be placed into permanent conservation for every acre that's disturbed. So we don't know at this point how much acreage that actually will be. And that's an item that will be fleshed out with the Cape Cod Commission throughout that process. And in specific around why we're here this evening, AMP and I had a similar structure in place for a project in Sandwich on Quisset Road. It's a smaller project, about 20 acres. But we entered into a partnership with the town of Sandwich, where we're going to donate that acreage to Sandwich, subject to a ground lease for the solar array, and put it into permanent conservation. So we worked pretty closely with the Sandwich Conservation Commission and the conservation agent over there to talk with them about the project. And they were our first stop when we started the permitting process for that project. When we were before the Sandwich Conservation Commission, we were, and similarly here this evening, just looking for, not this evening, but, in an upcoming meeting, a statement of support or a willingness to take on the conserved acreage into the town of Falmouth portfolio, to then be able to bring that to the Board of Selectmen as part of our explanation for and support for the memorandum of understanding that we're going to enter into, hopefully with the town, to donate the acreage, subject to going through the permitting process that Andrew just laid out. So hopefully that clarifies.
It does, but I'd like to have a little harder numbers, and maybe even identifying where this conservation land might be relative to the other things that you showed us.
Sure. Andrew, can you speak to that at all in more specificity?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So currently, and if have to excuse me. I probably stopped sharing my screen too quickly here. Let me throw this back up, and maybe I'll leave it up for the discussion purposes. So if you can see my screen now, again, this is the very rough technical drawing, but looking at this parcel and sort of hovering over here, which is directly north of Round Pond right here, that is a parcel that's about 44 and change acres. For tree clearing, we're going to be clearing in aggregate about 2.3 acres and replanting about 6.6 on this parcel. For over here, and then I guess to Matt's point, anything that would be considered cleared would be, a 2 to 3x offset somewhere on the site. Obviously, I think ideally not within the actual array footprint for the life of the project, but along the perimeter in some way. And then up here where I'm hovering is this other parcel that's directly to the east of that. That is about 41.5 acres in total, the whole parcel. For that, we would be clearing about 1.7 acres and replanting about 3.9 acres. And then directly south of Round Pond, right here, that is 49 acres, where we'll be seeking to clear about 3.7 acres, which is kind of this, eastern swath of trees here, and then replanting 7.4 acres on that site. So all in all, we would be seeking to clear across all three parcels, 7.7 acres, but replanting about 18. And then be looking to put into conservation some multiplier of, the cleared acreage as Matt described. I'm happy to expand further if it's not sufficient. Just please let me know.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. I know you said you'd keep it up, but if you would, I'd rather you stop sharing for the moment.
Sure.
But please don't be upset if you have to bring it back up.
No problem. Thanks.
All right, we lost Betsy for a minute.
Yeah, I just had one question. Has it been determined, what number of years you're talking about having the land turn over to Concom? I mean, I've heard it's been sort of quite a range of time.
That's a great question. So what we typically and have pursued, as Matt mentioned at the project in Sandwich, is for this project, the primary mechanism that allows us to pursue it is something that's called the SMART program in Massachusetts. Some of you, I'm sure, already know of it, but for those who don't, it's a program created by the Department of Energy Resources, DOER, which effectively helps to incentivize solar by incentivizing solar to be built in certain ways and disincentivizing solar to be built in, more intrusive ways. So that's the program we're going to be operating within. And when we lock in the incentive for that program, that lasts about 20 years. Now, there might be occasion at the end of that term for a new program to be created, or we don't really know. So typically we will opt in for a couple of 5-year extensions on top of that, just so we can execute if needed. But and that's, unfortunately, it's kind of, you're right, it's a little bit of a range, but at minimum 20 years, but at maximum typically about 40 if we decide to execute all those options.
What would the site be like when you're through with your operation?
So are you referring to the decommissioning process or what it would exist as after that happens?
Both. In other words, what's going to be left on the site when you're in a position to turn it over to someone else?
Yeah, excellent. What we do, so what happens on day one is you start populating funds into a decommissioning fund that sits in escrow. We cannot touch that, so that the town has that as an ability to access that if needed at some point in the future to pay for decommissioning, which is agreed with the town on what that amount would be. We will be the owner and operator of this project for its entire life. So we're planning on removing it. To more directly answer your question, what that is involved is to kind of paint a picture of what the array kind of looks like on the ground, it's effectively, as you can imagine, solar panels. It sits on racking at an angle, but then there's these steel piles that go directly into the ground to affix them to make sure that wind load or snow load doesn't destroy the array. What we do is first they come in, they will disconnect electrically all the system, they will remove cabling, they will remove the modules, and they will ideally have a second life. And I should note that solar panels typically degrade at 0.5% to 1% every year. So at the end of, 40 years, we're looking at panels that are still generating about 60 to 80% of the energy that they had on day one. So useful to somebody. Those get taken down, those get reused. Similarly, the steel on the racking, the steel on the piles get removed. Those get scrapped and reused, melted down for steel elsewhere. And then what we would do is we have specific funds set aside for site restoration, and that would be used to repair any sort of damage that maybe trucks caused in terms of getting to some of these arrays, to remove the material, and then reseeding for the native vegetation that we're planting through this pollinator meadow. And ideally, after that, after it has maybe like a year or two to stabilize and regrow, it would be pollinator meadow that hopefully would be maintained and just be able to return to its complete natural state. Happy to expand more on that, but that's sort of the high level.
Good, Kevin?
Not complete, but good.
Okay, so I mean, ultimately they're going to remove everything they've installed,
Right,
and to at least an extent, they're going to restore.
right.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention one other aspect. Yes, the equipment such as the batteries, power electronics, the inverter for the system will sit on fairly small concrete pads also on site. That will also be removed. So additional impervious surface that is eliminated, removed.
Okay.
You weren't even there. Steve?
Thank you. There is I'm not sure it's a public beach, but a beach on Coonamessett Pond that is on your property. I'm not quite sure, but I wondered whether that will continue to be available.
Yes, it will absolutely continue to be available. That is it's directly adjacent. It's almost right there, but it's off the property. So that will be continued public use. Yeah.
I think in their presentation back in the spring, there was a couple of pieces that they were going to retain, if you will, public use. As I recall, like the sledding hills. I mean, that's, that goes back forever. So things like that. So there was 2 or 3 pieces like that, if I remember correctly.
That is accurate. I could throw it up, but I don't want to be jockeying with giving people vertigo. But exactly, yeah, there's a sledding hill we would be maintaining in perpetuity, not touching that. And also we've worked with the Coonamessett Pond Association and need to finalize with them and start the a more depth conversation. But there is conversation to create walking trails around the pond that ideally could connect up with the Coonamessett Reservation, so that we could make that more of a network. So that is part of the plan, and that shouldn't ideally interfere with any of the fence boundaries. Just be kind of working around the fences.
Right.
And I just to build on that for a second, the AMP has already been engaging with the town on planning wildlife corridors throughout the golf course, which is a requirement of Falmouth zoning and also the Cape Cod Commission. So that's going to be a design component as we go through the permitting process.
Thank you. Maury?
I'm a little confused because I thought we're moving toward greener energy and we're talking about decommissioning these. Wouldn't it be in the future that this is going to continue on and we're going to have, more technology, better technology? And to say, we're going to, destroy this area put our panels in, then we're going to take our panels out when their life is over, and we're going to give it back to you with some restoration. I think that's short-sighted when we're headed in a direction of climate change that we're trying to make greener energy, yet you're already talking about getting rid of solar panels that, I mean, I'm just really confused on this whole process, I guess, that we're all sold green energy, and now you're already talking about removing green energy. So where are you going with this? You're just going to put your panels up, they're going to disappear, they're going to go in a landfill, and we go bye-bye.
So for the period of time for this project, I mean, the panels will degrade, but slowly. And I think that we'd be certainly open to working with the town if the town decided, hey, you know what, we want to maintain this as town-owned solar array at the end of its useful life. We could absolutely, walk away from the array, hand the keys over to the town.
So I guess I'm a little confused. So you're at the beginning of this, and then you want the town to all of a sudden take over a project that you started? I mean, it sounds to me like, I don't know, I need to look into it. It sounds to me like we're just not gaining ground on trying to create green energy. You're going to just build and then pack up and leave.
So I'll say yes, please go ahead.
No. One of the questions I had that I think will partially answer Maury's question is, Matt, you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to put it really simply, that basically you're buying this land and you're going to immediately donate it to the town with a land lease. Is that fundamentally correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so more, my understanding of this is that they're going to buy the land from the country club with the condition that they get a lease to put the solar array up. So that means that the town owns it. So that's good in that shows that they can't, run the solar and then sell it and develop it. So what they're talking about is what would happen to this land if at end of life, if and when that happens. So at end of life, it would be turned back over to the town in theory as cleaned up land. Now,
it was beautiful land before, so we're not cleaning up, they're cleaning up their mess.
Correct.
Because that's a beautiful piece of property. They're cutting down thousands of trees, and they're, so I'm not going to take long on this because it's got to go to the Cape Cod Commission, and I'm sure it'll be hashed out there.
No, and I'm not trying to sway you one way or the other. I'm just trying, because I was trying to understand, who owns the land, who's going to buy the land, and then what can happen. At some point, the panels degrade enough that they either need to be replaced with new or taken down. So my concern would be we approve all this, it happens, and then it gets sold to a developer, and we get what we get.
Right.
So,
well, I like the end result that we get it back, but it's almost like I would like to see it continue to be used as a solar array or some other form of green energy, if that's what the whole process was to start with.
So maybe we can convince them in 20 years to put new panels up with a new life and just hand it over to the town.
I'm sure the government incentives will be gone by then. Thank you.
All right, Melissa.
But I'm wondering if maybe in 20 years, we're going to have already moved on to a better form of energy, like fusion or something along those lines. And then the solar panels will be obsolete. And so I'm wondering if, at the end of life, if we're literally, I guess I'm asking AMP Solar, at the end of life, is the town going to have the decision of, do you decommission or do we move forward with replacing the panels if we want to do that?
Absolutely.
Or is that your decision?
I think that, for us, there is a cost to decommission this system.
Mm-hmm.
If the town wished to have the array remain, it's a net benefit to AMP overall. It could be a net benefit to the town too, and we would just leave it to the town's discretion on whether they would like to do that or have us remove it and restore it to, some sort of meadow.
Thank you.
Jen,
I have, Matt and Andrew, I have a couple of quick questions. So to get through the Cape Cod Commission, a certain amount of acreage has to be, in the end, open space, correct? More or less. So the entire parcel, so this is what I'm trying to clarify for the commission. The lease will be held by the town, and then there'll need to be a conservation restriction on a certain acreage, correct? But it doesn't necessarily mean that all of the acreage will be turned over to the Concom.
That's correct. The
Correct, okay.
expectation is that we'll conserve probably less than the entire golf course, but it'll be a requirement of the Cape Cod Commission that prior to starting the project, prior to getting a building permit, that a defined portion of the property is placed into permanent conservation.
Okay. So then the other areas of acreage will be owned by the town and could be utilized by the town for another purpose.
That's correct.
Okay, so the board, just to, so, I mean, affordable housing is a big need on the Cape right now. So the town, once this is decommissioned, could use that acreage for another municipal purpose. So I want the board to understand that you're gonna have a set acreage and it's not gonna be all, however many acres it is. So that's just to clarify for the board. My second question is, Andrew, you said that, plus or minus, AMP is going to be required to reforest 18 acres of parcel. Now, if that's with trees and shrubs, that's not 18 acres of pollinator garden, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the money set aside for the pollinator gardens are going to be underneath the actual arrays, correct?
Correct.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. Is AMP willing to put money in escrow to, let's say, the required acreage under a conservation restriction exceeds 18 acres? Is AMP willing to, let's say it's 24 acres, is AMP willing to escrow money to restore the 6 additional acres that would be under the commission's jurisdiction? If I'm saying that correctly?
I understand what you mean. I think that would absolutely be on the table. I mean, we want to make sure this works for the town.
Okay.
And this is as I mentioned previously, the decommissioning, I guess, agreement plan. We could absolutely sort of factor in certain elements of that make the most sense, just depending on what the town's priorities are. So very open to conversation on that.
Okay, those were my questions and clarifications.
but on that note, Jen, somebody from conservation should be involved in that.
We
that
have
part of
been
the
involved, and
negotiation
Mark
with
and
the
I have
town.
been involved in preliminary discussions with AMP Solar
Yeah.
in the town.
So that piece could be,
Correct.
we know would be in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Did I miss anyone?
Jen has been at every meeting we've had.
Mhm.
Yeah, we like
Either
our
I've been
meetings.
there or Mark has been there, one of the two of us.
Melissa,
Thank
do you have
you.
anything you'd like to add?
Nope, not at the moment. Thank you.
Sorry, this is going to get hairy. Melissa and Alyssa. All right. Ms.
I have
Bergeron.
nothing. I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
All right. All right. Courtney, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I came into this late, but thank you for clarifying a lot of this, because I had the same concerns that Maury did, that we're going through all this and then it seems to be an end game. But I understand it better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think to Maury's point, it'd be nice if this just went on and on and on in perpetuity. However, I think it's smart on behalf of the town to have a plan for the end game. I mean, let's face it, like I said, not to be repetitive, my issue was, who owns the land and can it be transferred that we don't have any say in? You know what I mean? So that's what this addresses. So again, I'm not picking sides. I just, you know, I think it's a smart thing to have an end game, but also, you know, like Melissa said, that could change, but also maybe the panels get better and, you know, and we want to keep it for the next 100 years. I don't know. All right, Ms. Freitag.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I did have one more question. I was wondering when it comes time to putting X acres under a conservation restriction with the town, are we going to have a say in which parts of the land are going to be under conservation, or are you just going to, you know, give us a chunk in the back corner or something like that? I mean, how is that going to work?
Matt, you might want to field that from the experience of the Cape Cod Commission. I would hope so. I think that would be open, but Matt, you would know.
So the Cape Cod Commission requires that the acreage that's put into permanent conservation would be otherwise developable. So things that are already functionally conserved, like wetlands, don't count for their mitigation obligations. So that'll be a factor in identifying what the acreage is. And you're right that it will be part of the discussion in the commission process. And it may very well be, given the nature of the property and that it's going to be a portion of the property overall, that the commission might, as part of their decision, condition identification on the acreage through working with the Town of Falmouth Conservation Commission, because there will be design constraints. There are the constraints imposed by the Cape Cod Commission. So I think we'll have a pretty good idea early on what acreage is left. Andrew, I think the risk of pulling out screen sharing again, just to take 30 seconds on the fourth hole above the southern array.
Yes. So I'm sharing my screen again, and what Matt is referring to is the little blocked by the legend, but it is where I'm hovering with my mouse. It's this open fairway for the fourth hole right here.
And I think the expectation is that that's not going to be part of the development. You can see the lines for the parcels and the array fencing here. So I think, you know, obviously can't commit to anything in particular, but this is obvious, you know, probably the most likely candidate.
So those two buildings in the square pasture in front of that, is that private property or is that part of the country club? Yeah, that
Private property.
Yes, that is not part of the country club.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Matt and Andrew, if you have anything else?
No.
Nothing for me. Thanks for everyone's time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for all the information. I'm sure we'll see you again. Thank you for this.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Next up, vote minutes, July 13, 2022. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes and found them to be an accurate recording of the meeting and moved their approval.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted. There's no comments, questions. All right. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Abstained, I wasn't there.
Okay. Melissa.
Fartall guy.
Steve.
And I.
All right. With one abstention, it's unanimous. We've accepted the minutes of July 13. Thank you, Kristen. Next up, vote minutes July 20, 2022.
Mr. Chairman,
Jamie, wait a
reviewed-
minute. Jamie, I
Yeah.
thought we were just doing the minutes of the 20th. I wasn't actually there on the 13th, so I need to abstain from that one.
Okay.
I jumped the gun. Sorry, I wasn't on the
All right.
commission.
We still have enough votes. We have still accepted the minutes, and I'm still grateful to Kristen. So
Yes.
now we're going to do the 20th.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of the 20th as written. And
Bird so moved. Second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted for July 20th. Any questions or comments? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
I wasn't there.
okay, Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
All right, with one abstention, we still have accepted the minutes of July 20th. Thank you, Kristen. Next up, request for determination of applicability. John Rockness, 67 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, Mass, for permission to replace the decking on an existing dock and to replace the wood cladding covering the concrete foundations to the dock. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Fellow Hawk, so moved.
Bird,
Gladfelter, second.
All right, competition, I like it. We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. If there's no questions. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Noah Clements, 21 Little Lane, Walkway, Mass, for permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18 10B. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Fellow Hawk, second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. If there's no questions. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Wild Harbor Estates Homeowners Council Trust, 163 Birch Lane, North Falmouth, Mass, for permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18 10B. Ms. Bergeron?
Yes, the applicant is requesting a continuance until August 10th.
So moved, Fellow Hawks.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until August 10th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until 8:10. Next up, Anthony and Patricia Albanese, 328 Walker Street, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a second-story addition with a deck and to install dry wells. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Fellow Hawks, second.
We have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. If there's no questions. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Edward Rocco's 301 Minot Road, East Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct a garage, 2 additions and 2 porches to reduce the existing balcony, to reconfigure the driveway, to install dry wells and all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Fellow Hawks, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. If there's no questions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Melissa,
Frog eye.
Steve.
And I,
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Gansett Trust, care of Jim Ware, 0 Gansett Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to replace a pile on an existing licensed float. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks second.
we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. If there's no questions. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Melissa,
Frog eye.
Steve.
and I,
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Samuel Lacy and Kathleen Wallace, 31 Emerson Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Carlo Hawks second.
we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions? All right, Betsy,
Gladfelder, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Melissa,
Frog eye.
Steve.
and I.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Thank you to the staff for all of that. Next up are requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes, so I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Timothy G. Gonzalez, 656 Walkway Highway, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install mitigation plantings in accordance with the expired order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-2504, 25-2591, and 25-3459. Jen,
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Jeff, do you think we should open both of them simultaneously since they're side by side and it's the same planting, basically?
If at all possible, that would be great. I also believe that Maria Hickey.
Okay, I'll promote
available.
Maria.
I'll promote her as well.
let me read the legalese. So we're going to open these simultaneously. The one I just read and the following. Vicky A. Donovan, 670 Walkway Highway, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to install mitigation plantings in accordance with the expired order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-2504. Was everybody clear on that? We're opening both of these, 656 and 670.
And Mr. Chairman, I just promoted Maria Hickey up as well.
So, excuse me, Jamie,
Yes.
is this why we only have then plans for Gonzalez and nothing for Donovan? I have nothing for Donovan.
Well, it must have been missing from your packet because the rest of us had it.
Yeah, sorry about that,
Yeah.
Melissa.
Okay,
Yeah. But I would think you have enough information to follow along for both
yeah, I
of
have
them.
Gonzalez and I have the staff reports on both of them, so,
Okay,
okay, thanks.
all right. Jeff, are you going to begin?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Jeff Johnson. I'm representing the applicants this evening. I'm from Holmes and McGrath, a wetland permitting consultant. The proposed project is to install the mitigation plantings on these 3 projects. There's an order of conditions 2504 from 2000 that was to remove some unauthorized fill, restabilization of the slope, and some planting. 2001, there was the construction of a breezeway and the reconstruction of a garage, and compliance was requested, and we worked with the agent to to satisfy the compliance, but compliance was never issued. We never pursued it beyond that. Then in 2008, another order of conditions, 253459, was issued to construct an enclosed porch and expansion of the deck. That the porch was never done, and that mitigation was not planted. The work on the first order in 2000, 25-2504, that order of conditions covered both properties, 656 and 670. If I may share my screen.
Yes, sir.
This is the close-up of the property at 656. 670 is up here and to the right, and this is that same property line, which showing the portion of 670. The wetland resource areas that we're dealing with here include a vernal pool at the bottom of the bank, a bordering vegetated wetland, both that were marked by LEC Environmental, but during the time that those permits were issued. We also have a coastal bank, because we are in the lower portion of which is within the 100-year floodplain, AE elevation 10. Also so happens that the boundary of the Wacoit Bay area of critical environmental concern follows that same 10-foot boundary, 10-foot contour. Staff had a comment in their staff report about clarifying the wetland buffers, and we modified the plan today to clarify that. There's no substantive change to the plan, but I just want to make it clear that this revised plan, which we submitted by email today, this afternoon, shows the correct buffer setbacks, which are the 50-foot coastal bank setback following along here until it extends a little bit further landward due to the 100-foot setback for the vernal pool. It follows along here. There's the 50-foot coastal bank setback there, but the vernal pool is a little bit more restrictive. And then it follows down here. And again, then we have the coastal bank one, which is more restrictive at this end. The buffer zone B extends the full 100 feet out here from the top of the coastal bank. Last fall, Holmes and McGrath and Maria Hickey and Mike Barcelli of Falmouth Engineering met on site to review the existing vegetation along the top of the bank for both parcels, and to determine what appropriate measures could be taken to revegetate any areas to obtain compliance. Falmouth Engineering was involved because they were the consultant for the last order of conditions 253459 in 2008. At that site meeting, it was determined that the upper portion of the slope could be revegetated. Some or most of this area has over time grown with invasive species, there is a patch of Japanese knotweed at the top that will be removed and eradicated prior to planting. These two areas, one on 656 Oakwood Highway is 460 square feet. The one on 670 is 910 square feet. And they're located all near the top of the coastal bank. Limit of work is provided at the lower portion because we do have a steep slope to perform the planting, ensure that there's no erosion goes down toward the wetland resource areas. Maria Hickey has provided a description of the planting work in her report. And she has listed the shrubs and sizes in that report that was submitted with the notices of intent. Maria, do you have anything more to add?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Maria Hickey from Maria Hickey and Associates. Thank you for hearing us tonight. The only comment I wanted to add is in the staff report back, I had listed 3 feet on center for all of my native shrubs, with the exception of the viburnum. We want to plant those 5 feet on center. It's a much larger shrub, and the girth of them, when you plant viburnum 3 feet on center, the branches are almost touching the next shrub, and it's not an ideal situation for them to grow even any wider. It's overcrowding at 3 feet on center. And I know in the staff notes, there was a comment, assuming all plants are 3 feet on center, it gave a head count of the plants. And I just wanted to clarify, the viburnum would be 5 feet on center, not 3 feet on center. And we look forward to planting this. Operative word being, once the high heat has passed, we'll be out there planting. Thank you so much, and we'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Jeff, you can stop sharing, please. Jen.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman, just what we put in the staff report. The spacing on how the commission usually likes it, but I don't have an issue with the viburnum being 5 feet.
Yeah, and I agree. I have some in my yard, and 3
They can
feet's
get
a little
big.
close. Yeah. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Yes, I also don't have a problem with the spacing. I did note that the viburnum was at 5 feet in the project description. I just threw that in as a note just to help us visualize. If there were 3 feet on center, 59 plants would be the maximum planted out there. So I'm assuming it'll be slightly less, maybe in the 40s for 656, for example.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, commissioner comments. Betsy.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Maria. Thanks, Jamie. I have no questions on these projects. And thanks for the staff for helping clear it up.
Courtney.
I have no comments, and I'll echo Betsy's comments.
Okay. Kevin.
Ditto for the last two.
All right, team player. Maury.
Just two questions. The percentage of viburnum, you gonna put in there, Jen? How many, not that it's 50% viburnum, but you'll have a percentage. And then the other thing was access. How are you gonna get in?
Okay, so on 470, there's for lack of a better word, a basketball court. It's very flat up there.
Yeah.
And it's easy enough right there where we're planting. And then at 456, there is a grade drop off, so that's why it's a smaller area that we are planting. And as far as the percentage of viburnum, we're putting an even mix of the planting. So
Okay.
when there's
Thank you.
4 plants, it'll be 25. And then when it's 3 plant species, 33%.
I thought there were 4 plant species.
Yes, when there's 4 plant species, which is at 670, because that's the bigger
All right, thank
parcel.
All right. Melissa?
All set, thanks.
All right. Steve?
I don't have any questions. My only comment is the signage was inadequate, at least today.
Thank you for that. I'll make note.
It'd be nice to see all these orders cleaned up.
Yeah.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
All right, folks, what do you, now, just to be clear, we're gonna vote on both of these, one way or the other.
Separately or, yeah.
I think it's clearer to do it separately, Jamie.
You have to do it separately, yes.
Fine.
I'll move to
All right.
close the first hearing on Donovan or Gonzalez. I'll move to close it.
Which is 6:56.
Yeah.
Betsy, was that a second?
I think Maury seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. So we have a motion and a second to close 656 Walkway Highway. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Earl Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed 656 Walkway Highway.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to close 670 Walkway Highway and take it under
Earl
advisement.
Hawks, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close 670 Walkway Highway. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Earl Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed 670 Walkway to Highway. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the commission.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good
Feel
night.
better with your arm and great to see you all. Take care.
Maria, are you done for the evening?
No, I have an enforcement.
Okay,
Very
I'll
end.
put you guys back into attendees then. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
All right, next up, Gaetano Fodera, 258 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, remove a deck and shed, construct a new single-family dwelling with a deck and a garage, to install mitigation plantings, to install a new sewage disposal system, and all associated grading, clearing, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just promoted Mike Borselli up to present his project.
Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir. You're on mute, sir.
Hopefully I'm not on mute now.
You're not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
I represent the applicant, Gaetano Fodera, who owns the property at 258 Edgewater Drive East. He recently acquired it and has plans to redevelop the property, including raising and reconstructing the existing single-family dwelling, installing mitigation planting, and upgrading the septic system. I'll go through the wetland resources and existing conditions, and then I'll show you the proposed activities. The lot borders on Eel Pond, so there's wetland resources, including land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There's a sandy beach along the waterfront. You can see mean high water. There's an area of beach grass in this area. There's a path that meanders from the stairs to the dock. More on this path in a minute. There's an existing stone riprap that is effectively a coastal bank. The top of the bank is the top of the riprap. There's also land subject to coastal stone flowage. VE 14 boundary is here. I've also shown the 25-foot Falmouth wetland regulation velocity zone as well. The existing conditions are typical of residential properties in this area. There's a house, driveway, lawn areas, landscaping, a shed. There's unique to this property is a deck that's here that they use for sitting and viewing the water. The proposed project. Oh, I forgot to mention also the associated no disturbance zone A from the top of the bank and the outer buffer B from the coastal bank are shown on the plan. The proposed project shows a new house. For reference, in the background in red is the existing house and some of the other existing features on the property that are proposed to be removed. The proposed house has been designed so that it doesn't move closer to the wetland resources than the existing primary structure. It's been strategically designed such that it is not within the Falmouth wetland regulation velocity zone. The deck is actually curved to parallel that. There's a new septic system placed between the house and the street as far as possible from the wetland resources. It was reviewed and approved by the Board of Health previously. I think it might have even received an RDA from this commission in years past. It was never installed because the previous owner had sold. There's no increase in bedrooms. The driveway will be modified because there'll be a garage on this side. There's a proposed driveway here. The green areas show mitigation planting. This is a typical redevelopment, and it was designed in accordance with your regulations at FWR 10.18. The mitigation calculations are outlined on the plan here. The net result is that there was a requirement for 1,396 square feet of mitigation, and the applicant's proposing 1,400 square feet, a mix of bayberry and beach plum size and spacing as is typical. There's also some tree mitigation proposed. For a couple of reasons, we're required to provide tree mitigation. In this case, 2 trees, because you require 1 tree for every 1,000 square feet, and we have 1,400 square feet. That would be 1.4 trees, and I don't know where to buy a 0.4 size tree, so we're going to give you 2 trees for the tree mitigation. And there are 2 trees proposed to be removed here, and we're going to mitigate for those as well. So I'm proposing 7 eastern red cedar to be planted along the boundary of the property with the abutter as tree mitigation. There are several elements on the property that we're proposing to remove that have been pre-existing for many, many years. And mitigation calculations were such that we took a credit for removing those because the new house is bigger than the existing house. And the only way to make this work was to eliminate things like the shed and this observation deck. There was actually another element on the plan, an outside kitchen area patio that the new owner had put in that is also proposed to be removed. And we did not take credit for removing that because it was not permitted. But you were provided with the color-coded mitigation shaded areas, impervious surfaces, both existing and proposed, that spell out the math for how we came to the mitigation requirements. I did receive the staff report, and I actually had a meeting with Jen and Alyssa today to go through the staff report, and I think we can address all the issues raised by staff, and I'll just briefly run through them. There's a couple of comments. There was a question as to whether or not the proposed deck would be raised, and I think I answered that question. It will be raised. It'll be elevated above the ground. The deck is proposed to be elevation 19, and the ground is about 13 to 13 and a half. The staff made reference to the outside kitchen and some pavers that we are proposing to remove, and we did not take credit in the mitigation because they were not permitted, but they are all proposed to be removed. There was a previous order of conditions, many of you were on the commission at that time, that allowed the riprap to be repaired, and as part of that there was some planting to be planted at the top of the riprap wall. Some planting has survived, some has not, some is not doing that well. So it's very clear, and it's been made clear to the new owner that he has to maintain and restore that over and above the mitigation that I'm showing in green shading, which is unrelated. So when the project advances, the concept would be to restore what has not survived on the original required native planting, and also to install the required mitigation. And it'd certainly be an expectation of a condition that they'll be maintained in perpetuity. There was a comment about some existing cedar trees that we're showing here that we wanted to relocate over in this location. They're not doing very well. They're small and sort of stunted. So in the staff meeting today, we agreed that it would be better to just buy new nursery stock Eastern red cedars and replace them and start fresh, because they're sometime between the sale and the new acquiring of the property, they weren't maintained. So they're doomed to failure, unfortunately. So we're proposing 4 new ones instead of shifting them as we had proposed on the plan. There was a comment about an existing holly cluster out here that was proposed to be removed for the new septic system. Evidently, that's already been removed. I was unaware of that. And finally, I had made reference to this existing path. Mr. Federa uses this dock as best he can. It's one of the few places I've seen in town where the shoreline is actually accreting and not eroding. So he's actually losing the ability to use this dock, even though it's licensed. And at one point you could tie a boat bow to shore on both sides. Now it's a big sandbar, and he has limited use of the dock, but he does use it. And he built an elevated walkway here over the sand without permission. He's been told that that has to be removed. It had been planks laid on the ground, and he assumed he could repair it or rebuild it, and he didn't understand it was in a velocity zone. He's been educated on that by me, and the staff pointed it out in their report. So that's most certainly going to be removed, and we'd expect that to be a condition as well. I think that sums it up. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, sir. Jen?
Mike, is there a way that you could, and I should have mentioned this afternoon, revise the plan to show the previous area of mitigation, or do you think that your plan does that with that little strip that says top of coastal bank? Is that little strip?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll share one more time briefly on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the old plan right now.
This strip right here is the only place where they were required to.
Yeah, okay.
So it's understood now that there's some surviving vegetation, but some that hasn't, that they'll have to plant from the top of the riprap back, including the white area, and then of course the green area, which is mitigation for the new house.
Okay, perfect. So I believe that, Mike is going to address all of our concerns. My only other concern is the way the dock is being utilized now. There's a jet ski, a boat, and then another boat that's between the two pilings. So it's almost like three little docks. He's using the two out pilings to secure other boats onto, plus the main pier. And I do have concerns with that because these boats are getting right up on that shoreline. But other than that, along with the house project, I think Mike is attempting to address all of our concerns.
Ms. Bergeron.
I just had one other thing to note. It looks like there's been some beach grass lost on the beach area. I think we knew that was a possibility when the riprap was being reconstructed, but this occurred over the past 2 years. There were some vessels stored on the beach, so perhaps those can be stored in the upland to help avoid future beach grass loss. I did provide some photos, so that would be up to the board to determine if they think the area should be replanted. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner comments, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the staff's comments. I honestly had some of those questions, but Mike and the staff seem to have worked out virtually everything. So I have no further questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Melissa.
Thank you, Jamie. I had a question about the, Mr. Borselli, Mike mentioned the kitchen that was added without a permit and the little walkway down the path without a permit. That deck that you're removing, is that actually permitted? The one that's the observation deck? Do we know?
I know it's been there since inception of the house, which was in the 70s. So, I mean, back at that point, there was no real permitting process, but it's been there forever.
Okay. I guess. Thanks.
All right, Maury.
I think staff covered everything. Thank you.
I don't think they need us. Kevin.
Speaking of not needing us, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Courtney.
Should those cedars that are being replaced perhaps be field cedars that'll be a little more hardy?
I'm not an expert on that, Commissioner Byrd, but I'm happy to consult with the staff and some landscape contractor to get cedars that stand a chance of surviving. It's the applicant should be motivated to have them survive because he's buying them and he needs to maintain them or it would become an issue with compliance and, a violation of the order. So whatever we can do to get good cedar trees.
It's a suggestion.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
I have no other questions.
All right. Betsy.
Mike, I never asked this question, but is there a place for a rinse station and AC pad?
I had not received details on the architectural plans about those elements. It's a very good question. I will answer it this way. When and if it's design in a place that isn't within the footprint. For instance, underneath the deck is an opportunity to put those elements, so then it wouldn't be additional impervious surfaces.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I was thinking
Maybe
that's what
that
it would
was-
be, but if it were for some reason outside that, I'd have to come back for an amendment and I'd have to adjust my mitigation planting. But as of right now, there's no plans that I'm aware of. I'd have to check with the owner about that detail, but that was my recollection.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Generators.
Generators too, yes. I will check on those things. And if I need to come back, I'll come back for an amendment.
Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman. And to answer Melissa's question, that deck viewing platform, you can actually see it in the 1975 aerial. So it has been there. I just looked.
Oh,
So I'll make a motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
all righty. We have a motion and a second to close this hearing. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Earl Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Bartol guy.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Andrew and Tammy Levitt, 245 Quisset Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct in a garage and 2 additions. Enlarge the existing deck, reconfigure the driveway and front walk, add fill and regrade the front yard, and all associated clearing, grading, and landscaping. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Borselli is here to present his project.
Mr. Borselli, welcome. You're up,
Yes,
sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, representing the applicant. With your permission, I'll share my screen again.
Yes, sir.
This property located at 245 Quisset Road may be familiar to some of the commissioners. There was an order of conditions issued to raise and reconstruct this house by an applicant a few years ago. That work actually happened. A certificate of compliance was issued. The property was sold and the new owner wants to make additional modifications, which is why I'm here tonight. Wetland Resources include a wetland that's off-site but was flagged by Jack Vaccaro for us. There's a sloping landform that meets the definition of coastal bank. That's delineated on the plan. A portion of the property is in land subject to coastal storm flowage. That's AE 16, and it's only this corner down here. And we've shown the associated no disturbance zones A from the top of the bank and from the BVW. At the time we proposed this project originally, and this is something that's new, there was a boundary of the priority habitat came through the site. It appears that the map has been changed. That said, your regulations say when there's these no disturbance zone A is increased to 100 if there's the potential for rare and endangered species on the property. Now the map changed, but we didn't change the no disturbance zone A's. We kept them at 100 because it's unclear to us if that map really did change, and we'd rather err on the side of caution. And our project still works with it. So this could be different. It could be a 50-foot from the BBW, 50-foot no disturbance zone A, but we're keeping it as is because it still works and the project meets the standards in your regulations. The project itself includes a reconfiguration of the driveway. If you've been to the site to visit it, you might have had to navigate the driveway and the retaining walls that are surrounding the driveway, because the current house is a garage under situation. So they had actually excavated and reshaped the front to facilitate that garage under, and it required concrete block retaining walls surrounding the driveway. So it's a little difficult to navigate, and it's in a tough spot on Sipawizard Road for sight distance. So the new one is trying to alleviate some of that problem by eliminating all those walls, eliminating the garage under, and adjusting the grading by on average 4 feet, 4 or 5 feet. It's steeper right at the garage doors, of course, but it's less here. So that this will be regraded and shaped back to what it originally used to be before they did the last raise and reconstruction. We did estimate the volume of fill, because I'm sure I may be asked that question, at approximately 200 cubic yards to just eliminate all these walls and reshape the front yard. There'll be a more traditional driveway with a back out area parking slot here. The septic system is shown, it's existing over here. The additions include a 14 by 24 here, and then a 22 by 24 garage. And then the existing garage will be part of the new house renovation. They also want to expand the deck, which is shown here as a 12 by 13 foot expansion. By eliminating all of the paved areas for the driveway and some crushed stone areas on the side of the house, we were able to make it so there's no net increase in impervious surfaces in the A zone. There's actually a very slight decrease of 143 square feet. So there's no mitigation planting required. This is something that came up today in a staff meeting, and it's we neglected to identify this tree that I'm showing here to be removed. I believe it's a 14-inch oak. So that has to be removed and then mitigated for. And there was a requirement for an eastern red cedar on the previous application that doesn't appear to be on site now. I don't know why. And that needs to be replaced because it was a requirement on the last order of conditions. So we were proposing to mitigate for this tree removal 2 trees and to give back the one that was supposed to be in this location for a total of 3 trees. And it appears that we have an opportunity to put them over in this location. We went over this today with Jen and Alyssa, and it seemed to be an appropriate location. So I can submit a revised plan that shows 3 eastern red cedars in this location. There's a limit of work on the plan. We're showing some dry wells for the new addition. And I think that sums it up. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Jen?
I have nothing more to add. We talked about the placement of the cedars, so.
All right, Ms. Bergeron.
I also have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments, Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, Maury.
What's the new driveway going to be made of, Mike?
Pavement,
Pavement?
bituminous, yep.
Okay, so I know there's a little bit of slope there. You're going to have somehow to capture any water, like a little swale or something.
Yeah, I'll show you that.
Oh, it was on there? I'm sorry.
Well, we're showing this to be regraded so that the water pitches from the doors away from the garage doors, and there's a slight height.
Right, it's kind of going to go in that.
It's going to go like that. Yeah, this is going to be a swale along the side of the house, just a grassy swale.
Okay, just as long as it doesn't run off. If it's all paved, I I just have a feeling you're changing the grade a little bit there. It's 2 feet that'll run down that hill.
Yes.
I want to put
understood.
something in that backup. Thank you.
Melissa,
Hi, thanks, Mike, for the presentation. I noticed that you're leaving the second paved apron where you're removing that part of the curved driveway. I mean, it's a really tough corner on a really tough part of Quisset. I'm wondering, is that apron, I mean, why are you leaving that apron, or why are you?
That's a good point. That's not needed at all.
Yeah,
I can propose that to be removed. It's outside jurisdiction, but you're right. It may lend itself to a dangerous situation. So
yeah, it's a driveway usage. From
someone might get. It's proposed to be restored and loamed and seeded, and it leads to nothing. So there's no point in it being there. So I can note that to be removed as well.
Yeah, sorry, it's out of my jurisdiction, but I just.
No, it's a good
It
point.
struck me as odd.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, thanks. Be a strange place to park your car.
It'd be a dangerous place.
Yes. That's
all
it,
right,
thanks.
Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions, but I would add that it is a dangerous part to park your car.
Yes.
All right, Betsy.
I think that's said with some experience. I have no questions on the project. It's very clear. Thanks, Mike.
Courtney?
No questions.
Excellent. Nice clear plan, Mike. Good presentation.
Thank you.
All right, Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Then I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Carlo Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's no further comments. All right, Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawk's aye.
Melissa.
Right, tall guy.
Steve.
And I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Boselli.
Thank you, and have a good evening.
Night, Mike.
Good night.
Next up, continued hearings under notice of intent. Barbara Good Tui, trustee, 15 Rock Street Nominee Trust, 15 Rock Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct an addition and to replace existing pavement with lawn and gravel pave. And Courtney and Maury are not on this quorum. Jen, correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct. And we got a late continuance request in. So this hearing is being continued until August 31st. Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
I don't think I'm on this one either. Am I?
No, you're not, Melissa.
Yeah.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this until August 31st.
Bird, second.
Bird, you're not on the quorum.
Oh, okay. I thought it was ministerial.
O'Brien, second.
Yeah, that's a good point, Courtney, but we'll work around it. Jen, did you confirm Melissa's not on this quorum?
Melissa,
Yes.
when do we first open this one?
Well, it's not last week, and last week was my first meeting.
Yeah, so.
So I'm not
I'm
on
sorry.
this one.
Yeah.
Fine. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until 8:31. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
All right, with a quorum of 4, we will continue this until 8:31. Thank you. Next up, Christopher and Jennifer Lemley, trustees, Osprey Nest Realty Trust, 96 Chappaquay Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise RAZE, a single-family dwelling, and construct a new single-family dwelling with attached garage, decks, and porches, to construct an in-ground pool with patio and spa, to install a denitrification sewage disposal system, to reconfigure the driveway, to install mitigation and restoration plantings, and all associated grading, clearing, and landscaping. And I have Maury is not on the quorum. But
Good evening,
hold
Chairman.
on, Jeff, hold on. Jen, is that, is Melissa on this?
This was opened on what, the 20, no, this was opened on the 20th.
Didn't we see this last week?
We didn't have a meeting last.
Well, the last meeting.
The last meeting you saw this one, yes.
Yeah, we saw this from the last meeting.
And the one
That was a continuance.
was a continuance. We've seen it.
Oh, okay, then no, I'm not on that one. I guess. I just have all the paperwork and.
Oh, I have the quorum sheet right in front of me. I apologize. Courtney, Kevin, Betsy, Jamie, Steve, Melissa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't believe we, this might be the second continuance, but I don't believe we opened it on that first hearing. So I have Melissa on the quorum.
Okay, so it's only Maury. Sorry, Maury, you're not on this quorum. All right. Mr. Johnson, you're up, sir.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. Jeff Johnson, representing the applicant. With me tonight is Darshni Joseph, a landscape architect. Permission to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
At the previous hearing, the Commission had a number of concerns which have been now addressed with this revised landscaping plan. The actual civil site plan has not been revised. The landscape plan has been revised to remove the replacement trees out of the required mitigation areas. That was an oversight in the original planting plan. So now the only trees that are proposed within the mitigation are the 3 mitigation trees. The replacement trees have been planted elsewhere. There was a comment about the number of trees and caliper inches that were being removed on the entire site for the project. And we've reviewed all of that information, and in reviewing the site, the applicant is now offering 15 additional cedar trees beyond the minimum 1-to-1 replacement for the trees that are being removed. So we have, many of those trees are being placed down in this group down here as a grove of cedar trees. The replacement trees are also being offered at varying heights to increase the vertical diversity, 5 to 6 feet in height, 6 to 8 feet in height, and 8 to 10 feet in height. So there'll be a variety of heights in that area. The applicant is also, as you may recall, there's this area that had once been counted as mitigation, which we had revised because it was an area that was required to be left to regrow from a previous clearing exercise from the earlier ownership. The applicant would prefer to plant that area, so they are voluntarily planting, they propose to voluntarily plant that area with this similar palette of shrubs that we're using for mitigation. That is over and above all of the required mitigation, exclusive of what is required. And for clarification on the plan itself, we have divided up the planting areas into 3 parts. The areas in pink shown on this plan are the required mitigation areas. The areas shown in green are the proposed restoration areas for the portion of in the A zone that is being removed. And the areas in blue are the reserve mitigation areas that would be available should the proposed reinforced turf areas fail. So they're all with the appropriate sizing. I believe that all addresses the commission's questions. And if Darshni, do you have anything else to add?
No, thanks, Jeff. I don't have any comments at this time. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Thank you. All right. Jeff, you can stop sharing for the moment. Thank you. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can you just clarify where the grasses are going on your plan, please? If you don't mind.
I'd like to share mine. Can you share yours, Darshni, or? There you go.
Yes, so the grasses, are right here, the Carex and the Discampsia. They're the areas that have the hatch marks. So right here and here.
So are they within the mitigation area or are they adjacent to the mitigation area?
Right now they're within the mitigation area.
Okay. 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 Well, the board will have to decide whether they want to keep the grasses in your mitigation area. And the only other comment I had was where all the Jeff, can you just explain what the area is like where all the grove of cedars are going? What that area is like right now, because it's vegetated, but
yeah, there's a fenced in, there's an old fenced in area. It's a former garden. It's just all completely overgrown with whatever it came up from the garden. It's just it is a very low value, and that's what it is. It's the old overgrown garden area.
okay, so the board will have to decide whether or not, you would consider that, existing vegetated area to put the trees. That's all I have for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Bergeron.
I have nothing to add at the moment. Thank you.
All right. Jeff, if you would stop sharing.
I think it's
I can stop.
Oh,
Darshni.
sorry.
Sharing now. Yes, thank you.
That's been a problem lately. I'll ask you to stop and then we need to start again. So
yeah,
it's what we do. All right, commissioner comments. Courtney.
No questions.
All right. Kevin.
No questions.
All right. Melissa. Melissa?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. Jen's question about the grasses makes me wonder what Jen was thinking.
Because typically we don't allow grasses in a mitigation area. It's usually woody shrubs. So I was just curious where the grasses were going to be, since they were the largest amount of the largest quantity of a species in the mitigation area happens to be the grasses. So, but are they going to just be like an understory to the shrubs?
Yes.
They're
Yeah, it was the idea was just to kind of add a diversity of the planting, but we can replace those with some more native shrubs.
Okay. So the board can decide if they want the grasses, if they want to allow the grasses or to replace those with more native shrubs.
Yeah.
Which is typical what mitigation is, shrubs, not grasses usually.
Thanks for that clarification, Jen. And Ms. Joseph also, I'm gonna just sit and learn here.
All right. Steve.
No, I don't have any questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Betsy?
I have a question. How many caliper inches are being removed?
I knew you'd ask that question. I do have an answer. One moment.
I'll come back to you, Courtney.
Yep.
There are a total of there's a total of 268 caliper inches being removed.
And the 24 trees you're replacing, approximately what are they at DBH? I know they're different sizes.
Well,
at different heights, so they might be.
That's the problem with cedar trees. They're not the DBH isn't. Yeah, they can be skinny and still have great value in width for wildlife. So it makes it difficult. They can also be very large diameter and can be very poor value, have very poor value with weak branches and fewer branches. So it's very difficult to quantify. We feel that we've taken a look at the entire site on the number of trees that are. It's generally all the areas outside of the development area are generally wooded, and some of the areas that aren't wooded are now going to be planted, including this area of this grove of cedar trees we're planting. There are limited areas in which to plant more trees. So we feel like we've kind of maximized the number of trees by adding the additional 15.
I remember the times we worked together on, and you actually came up with some great ideas when we did some of the revisions.
Yes, I remember too.
So I have two questions. One is, are there any of the trees that you're cutting that could be moved somewhere else? I'll tell you what my concern is. I actually knew what the inches were because I added it up last week during the meeting. But I don't think there are two aspects. People think of the trees and the upper part of the trees that you can see and the role that it plays in wildlife and so forth. But I don't think people realize that, and this came up with another project that we had a few weeks ago that was on Colonial. I don't think people realize that the actual surface area for exchange of gases and water underneath the ground, especially if you add in the fungi that grows on the roots, is much greater even than the surface area of the trees, of the leaves of the trees. So and I know both of you know about this, but the average person doesn't realize the importance of the role of trees and tree roots in terms of the water balance of an area. So anyway, that's why we have the range from tree to tree, and we hardly ever, I don't know if you heard what Mike just did in the last hearing,
Yes.
but we would hardly ever allow tree for tree unless it was a place that was chock full of trees. And you do have some other trees, but you're really taking a lot of, a lot of those trees were, 15 to, one was 28 inches DBH. So these are big trees that play an important role. So this is what you're offering us, and I guess we'll have a discussion next week. But could you move any of the ones that you're going to chop down?
Dashni, do you think that is possible?
I think it's going to be pretty tough to survive those transplants there because of the size.
If I might share my screen, I can show you a photo of some of them. Actually, pulled up a couple of photos to show that fenced-in garden area here.
Okay.
But some of those, and here's the house. So some of those trees that we're talking about are here. They have been pruned over the years. Some of them do have, they're quite tall and large. I'm not sure that transplanting them would really be successful.
Okay, well, I just wanted to throw that out.
Yep, I understand.
And then I have one other question, and I'm sure you or Jen would have picked this up, but this is not in the DCPC?
No, that's correct.
Okay, just confirming that. That's all, thanks.
All right. Wendy, you had something else?
Yeah, going back to the grasses question, I don't have a problem with planting ornamental grasses in with woody shrubs. However, they better be very low growing because there's a lot of ornamental grasses that grow 4 and 5 and 6 feet high, and those will crowd out anything. But if you've got something that runs, 3 or 4 or 5 inches high and actually supplements the ground cover, I don't have an issue with it.
Yeah, they're more of an understory grass.
Yeah, well, I just wanted that to be clear.
Yes.
And I hope it gets into the order of conditions.
Okay.
All right. Jeff, thank you for changing the plan and coloring it. That makes it a lot easier on the eyes.
Yep.
Makes it easier to discern all the different.
Dashni's plan. Yes. Thank you.
Perfect.
I know it's a confusing plan to read.
Well, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
All right,
Mr.
Jen, is there
Chairman, I have
anything in
one
the
quick
public?
question.
Yeah.
Jeff, can you confirm, and because I just wasn't at the last hearing, can you confirm that it's a D night?
Yes, it is a D night.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There is nothing in the public chat.
Move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Freitag, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's nothing further. All right. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa.
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
And I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next up, request to amend an existing order of conditions. Joy Kaplan, 2003 Revocable Trust, 41 Bywater Court, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4673 to permit modifications to the existing foundation construction of a garage and addition, reconfiguration of the driveway, elevation of the structure to meet flood zone standards, and installation of additional mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Jeff Johnson's here to present the project. Jeff, who else am I presenting up? Because there's an awful lot of people in that attendees list, and I know some of them have to belong to this project.
There's Kelly Conlon.
Okay, yeah.
She represents the architect.
Yep.
And I'm not sure who else we may need to speak, but why don't we get through it and see if there's questions that the two of us can't answer.
Okay, I'm promoting Kelly up as we speak. Okay.
All right, Jeff, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the commission. Jeff Johnson, Holmson McGrath, representing the applicant. Let me share my screen. Okay. This is a close-up of the existing conditions plan of the site. This is 41 Bywater Court. Zoom out a little bit. You'll see we have a bordering vegetated wetland on the adjacent property to the north with a 50-foot buffer zone A, the 100-foot buffer zone B. The entire site is within the AE portion of land subject to coastal storm flowage. The commission approved under the existing order of conditions this plan to reconstruct the entry porch window seat and to add a second floor to the entire structure. The increased square foot area is no closer to the wetlands than the existing primary structure, and mitigation was provided here with one mitigation tree. The applicant is proposing now to modify this plan. We'll still be placing the second floor and doing the addition and covered porch, but is now removing the existing cobble line driveway here, shifting it over and creating a garage under. The proposed plan incorporates a new addition here. And this addition with the balcony above, as noted, is still part of what was previously approved. But the difference between this plan and the previous plan is that for these portions alone, new foundations need to be poured and added to the existing foundation. As you recall, the existing foundation on the house is to remain and was deemed.
Excuse me, Jeff, could you speak up a little? We're having trouble hearing you.
I'm sorry. My paper must have covered can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the existing foundation is to remain, but we're going to be adding portions of foundation here and here. This increase in square foot area is also no closer to the wetland resource areas than the existing primary structure, and along with this rinse station, which is just a little bit actually further away than the previously proposed wind station. But our mitigation requirement has been increased and shown here in the same location, but larger. The proposed mitigation is 756 square feet as required, under the 1,000 square foot limit for more than one tree. So we're planting one mitigation tree in the same location as previously proposed. Kelly Conlon is here from JN Architects. If we have any questions regarding the construction and design. With that, I pass it over to any questions.
Hello. I would just like to speak to the, just to explain a little bit that we've now pulled the house out of the floodplain. We had issue with that before. And so now that we're pulling it out of the floodplain, it's the reason why we've, the client required an elevator to get up higher. And so the elevator and then the garage below is what the new footprint is.
Thank you, Kelly.
All right, Jeff, you good?
Yes.
Okay. Jen?
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Bergeron?
Neither do I. Thank you.
All right, I know there's somebody listening. I'm going to be the bad guy here. The note from Nicholas Bateman in the summary, in conclusion, the existing foundation is good condition, blah, blah, blah. Such that the proposed construction costs do not exceed 50%. So is that where you're going to save your money? The guy I used to work for would split hairs on words like that.
It's actually,
anyway,
that's actually no longer a valid statement, because they are actually going to be bringing the house up to flood zone standards. So
yeah,
that would only apply if we were not doing that.
Yeah, Courtney, I'll get to you. Yeah, I just wanted to point that out. We have a captive audience, so. All right, so before Courtney has a coronary, let him comment.
I'm just, as a resident curmudgeon, I believe the scope of work being proposed here puts it outside of the realm of an amendment, which is supposed to be a minor change. I think there should be a new order of conditions.
All right.
I would just comment that this is a house renovation to add a second story with an addition.
I know, but it's
and
still
all we're doing is adding one more addition.
Stop talking over each other. Mr. Johnson.
I would just like to say that the scope of the work is the second story addition, renovation to the house. That has not changed. They have added one addition to it. I don't believe that's a significant change in scope to require a new notice of intent.
All right, Kevin.
I tend to agree with the consultant on this. Sorry.
All right, Maury.
Can't hear you, Maury.
Sorry, no questions.
All right. Melissa?
So I'm missing something here. First of all, it sounds to me like this obviously was in front of you folks a long time ago, and I wasn't here for that. So does that mean I have no say anymore?
You have a say. It's a new amendment.
New amendment. So since I didn't see the original, please confirm that this is going to be on pilings. This is going to be elevated quite high off the ground.
It's not on pilings. This is, we're in the AE flood zone and not the VE flood zone. The VE flood zone would require pilings. It is, however, going to be elevated in accordance with the flood zone standards. 1
So
foot
how high?
minimum of 1 foot above the flood zone elevation. Let me share my screen again so I can see the plan.
We're raising it 5 feet.
So it's at, the finished floor is going to be at elevation 16, and the existing elevation around the house is at 8. So the first floor will be approximately 8 feet higher than the existing ground.
Okay, and then so this garage, so you're adding a second story, so you're doubling the size of the house that way, and then you're putting a garage below.
It's not doubling the size of the house. The second floor addition is a much smaller than the full footprint of the house. It's just over the east portion here. It's not a full second floor. It's just a piece.
Okay, I mean, this is the problem that I didn't see the first one. And then you're putting a garage. So you're actually gonna, the garage will be at grade level then, or are you gonna dig down?
At grade.
At grade.
At grade.
I don't know. I do coastal resiliency. I don't know. I don't know.
The water will flow. The water will flow in and out.
Yep.
Flood vents are proposed around the existing foundation. On the ground level floor, the only there will be the only storage except for the elevator, which is allowed by code.
And what kind of surfacing are you going to use for the garage floor?
Kelly?
That was the plan.
Impervious slab?
We hadn't gotten that far yet.
Okay, thank you for the moment.
Steve?
I don't have any questions. No.
Okay. Betsy?
I agree with Kevin and Jeff. I can review this under an amendment. And just a comment to Melissa. Even if it were pervious, you shouldn't be getting water there unless there's a flood. And if there's a flood, it would be better just to go across a concrete pad.
Okay. I see that. Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah. Go talk to Jen and she'll tell you about these floodplain requirements.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Did we lose Jamie?
Looks like.
I did have one comment. Jamie's not here, but usually Melissa also, if there's a lot of fill being brought in to deflect the water onto other property, but this particular project isn't showing any of that. There's a very slight grade change in the front. And that's why we usually want fill calculations, because if all of a sudden they're building this huge mound, there's already a foundation there, so it's not creating more displacement of water.
Okay, makes sense.
Jamie's back. He's coming in.
We missed you, Jamie.
I was about to seize control, Jamie.
Jamie, can you say something? Because I can't hear you.
Can he hear us? Jamie, do you hear us?
He might be connecting to audio.
Ben, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Jamie, just to move
Jamie?
things along till you get your sound, I'll just take over for a second.
That's
are
fine.
there any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Carla Hawk, second.
Okay. All right, we'll cast the votes. We'll start with Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Bird, aye. Maury,
Carla Hawk's aye.
Steve,
Pat and I.
let's see, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
and Jamie, if you're there. Okay.
I don't think he can hear us.
The motion's carried. The hearing's closed.
Thank you very
Next.
much.
Okay, you back, Jamie?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
No, I don't know what happened. If I lost my connection there for a bit.
So we closed that one, ready to, I think it's enforcement order.
Okay. Thanks,
Jeff
Courtney.
and Kelly, goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you, Courtney, for your fine substitute chairing there.
Well, thank you.
Jumped right in. All right. Next up, hearings under an enforcement order. Glenda Whiting, 74 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation within conservation jurisdiction.
I'm gonna let Alyssa take this one because she has been working with the property owner. Or
All right.
Yes.
communicating with the property owner, let me put it that way.
Ms.
Great, thank
Bergeron.
you. Thank you. I've been in contact with the property owner. She usually works on Wednesday night, so she's in the process of trying to figure out a night where she can attend a hearing. We haven't come to a conclusion on a date yet, but my suggestion would be to continue it out a week until I hear back from her, and we can go from there.
So moved.
Pat, second.
Second.
I'm sorry, what was that date?
August 10th.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second to continue this till August 10th. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's aye.
Melissa,
Fragile guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until August 10th. Next up, Michael Tegnano's 86 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation within conservation jurisdiction. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you, yes. So I believe we have Maria Hickey here, potentially George Collins and the homeowner.
I've just promoted Maria Hickey and the homeowner up. I don't see George in the
Okay.
attendees tonight. So
Wasn't sure if he was
Taking
coming
it.
or not. Perfect, thank you. So this enforcement came up as staff received a complaint that there was some tree work going on at 86 Edgewater Drive East. When I arrived at the property, nothing was happening, but I did leave a card and I spoke to the homeowner the next day. We scheduled a meeting with Maria and he showed me around the site. They did recently have some approved work, including a septic upgrade, and it appears that there was just additional clearing that took place at that time that was not permitted. And they are ready to restore the area within jurisdiction there, and Maria has provided a plan. There will be a number of red cedars as well as your typical shrub species. And at this point, I will turn it over to Maria and Mr. Tanianos.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, and to the board. We appreciate the opportunity to come before you and to let you know that we've worked out a replanting plan for this resource area. And we look forward to getting that planting done. However, just trying to let this hopefully this last bout of heat pass us by. Kind of to circle back in one of the earlier hearings, someone had a question about cedar trees and planting the hardiest ones. And it's really a timing question. You always want to put your evergreens and trees in, if possible, during the beginning of the growing season, March, April, May. So it gives them a chance to root in and acclimate before you get into the heat and the drought that we've been experiencing the last few summers. So with that being said, most likely we will plant all the native shrubs in the next month or so, and then we'll add the cedars when the weather window is more appropriate, as we do want them to not only survive, but thrive as well. I'd like to introduce the homeowner. Mike, are you available?
I am, absolutely. First of all, thank you to Mr. Chairman, the rest of the commission. Appreciate the opportunity to chat and introduce myself to all of you. I wanted to first just apologize for the scope of the work that is on the agenda for this evening to discuss. I've talked extensively with Maria to try to make sure that whatever we mitigate, whatever the plan is, that it's fully within the commission's desires, and look forward to working with everybody in the future to make sure that everything is to go going forward.
Thank you, sir. All right. Commissioner comments, Betsy.
No, thanks for Mike and Maria working with the staff. We have, and Melissa does a great job.
She sure does.
She does. She's been a pleasure to work with.
All right.
It's all
Courtney.
Jamie.
Maria, do you have a plan you can share with us just to show them?
I had emailed it into Alyssa, but it's an even mix of shrubs. I had it on the site plan and everything.
I can describe it, Maria.
Yeah,
I wrote it
you know
down.
what? Give me 1 second. The board can ask questions. I'll bring it up. I just have to jump on to the VPN. You can go forward. I'm just
okay. So what I wanted to add is that it's a mix of native shrubs, 3 feet on center, to restore the resource area. And we also were able to determine that 8 trees of varying heights were removed. We're going to add 8 cedar trees at minimum. And we wanted to put those down the lot line to provide additional screening and privacy to the neighbor who has complained that she sees the car lights and things like that. And we are also willing to add additional cedar trees or tupelos or maples, whatever the board may request, throughout the resource area, just to, give the diversity in heights and species, and to restore it as native as possible.
I think that might be necessary because cedars weren't removed. Wasn't it primarily like oaks?
It was. So
That
I
was
was trying to
good,
offer some
so-
diversity and habitat, for nesting and for protection for the wildlife. There was only 1 cedar on the whole property that I saw when I went out there. So certainly we always like to expand upon what's there.
And do we have a plan from? Do we have a
Yes,
plan
George
back from the board
Collins.
yet? Got it. Okay. I mean, my thoughts, Maria, are, well, we're going to need to have either some oaks or tupelos because you're basically just trying to address the enforcement order through like a screening hedge along the property line. And I don't particularly think that's appropriate, but we can work with you on additional trees and some oaks or tupelos or something like that on the property just to kind of replace that value that was lost.
You got it. Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. And if you want to see the area being replaced, like kind of an area that was disturbed, I can bring that up and share my screen, Mr. Chairman.
Or
Did we lose Jamie again? Oh,
No, he's there.
I'm trying not to interrupt you.
So it was this area along here. It was done during the installation of the septic. There were several large oaks over here. And this was the junipers along the property line would act as a screening along with some shrub material. And I'm sorry again, Maria, what shrubs are you proposing?
So I was doing I was gonna put some viburnum in.
Okay.
Clethra, because I'm assuming once we still have a tree canopy with shade. So I need to put probably Clethra, winterberry, viburnum, and then possibly some bayberry.
Okay.
In the
We can work with
sunny
you on that.
areas. We'll work it out.
Yeah, that's fine.
Good.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Courtney,
No questions.
Kevin,
No questions.
Maury,
No questions.
Melissa,
No questions.
Steve.
No questions.
All right. We're looking for a motion to issue an enforcement order, correct?
Correct.
Do we need time? I'll make a motion to issue an enforcement order that has the following parameters.
That's you, Jen.
Oh, you want the parameters?
Yeah, so,
How much
so,
time?
yeah, I mean, Maria said that she would be planting the shrubs pretty soon and then the trees in the fall, No, the trees in the early spring.
In the early spring, because that's more appropriate for their survival and thriving. So I had already worked out with Jen and Alyssa, for the most part, the whole planting plan, and we just wanted to get it planted so we can restore it.
Yeah, we just need the language for the motion.
So just, approve the existing planting plan with the addition of some additional oaks or tupelos, and the staff will work it out with the applicant on proper placement on the property.
And that's my motion.
Carla Hawk, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an enforcement order. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Melissa,
Freytag, aye.
Steve.
Batten, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an enforcement order. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
All right. Next up is vote order of conditions. And Maury, you're not on either one of these, but we do have a piece of other business if you don't mind hanging around.
Not at all.
Excellent, appreciate it. All right, vote order conditions. First up, Peter S. Meyer and Elaine Marie Lynch, trustees, Peter S. Meyer Trust, 10 Mayor's Pond Drive, East Falmouth, Mass.
I can describe these, Jen.
Yeah.
So 10 Mayor's Pond, we discussed that was the removal of an existing deck in order to reconstruct a slightly larger deck in relatively the same area. They were going to be redoing crib work, putting in a little over 100 square feet of mitigation and a few restoration plantings. Out of everything talked about, the note that I have is regarding some kind of fencing. I admit I was making a note when that discussion was going on, so I don't quite remember all the details about that fencing, but it seemed that the board was in favor of it. I'm not sure if anyone can elaborate.
Yeah, they were having trouble in that corner achieving the 10-foot limit of work. So they were going to put fencing between the deck posts to limit physical access into the restricted area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
And
to
yeah, I
keep,
think that's fair. I mean,
Is that a
keep any of the
temporary?
building
Yeah, is that temporary fencing or is that more of a permanent?
correct.
fencing?
Yeah, yeah, it's just for
temporary.
construction.
Got it. Okay. That was my only note, unless anyone has anything different.
Nope. Anybody have anything?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's no other questions. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Bartog, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Dana Rhoden, Quisset Harbor Preservation Trust, 48 Quisset Harbor Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, so this is the knob. They will be reconstructing part of that revetment in between the two previously constructed portions, making a new contiguous piece. Let me see. The only notes that I had, I did bring up the DMF comments during the hearing just so that it was put on the record. I'm not sure if those are required to be a special condition or not, if that's typical. But that was all that I had.
What was that, Alyssa?
Just referencing the DMF comments. I've seen that in the past where DMF comments were listed as special conditions.
Okay.
So I didn't know if that was appropriate here.
And then we can put the same conditions we put on the original revetment portion too. So that's fine.
More of the same.
Yep.
All right, does anybody have anything they want to see in there? All right,
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. There's no further comments. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Melissa,
Bartog, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you, everyone. Next up is other business. Vote letter of support for grant applications for restoration efforts in Upper Coonamessett River Complex. See, this is a new one, huh? Never mind.
That's
Are you
All
gonna,
right.
are you gonna introduce me, Jamie?
Oh, please. Dr. Gladfelter would like to give us a small, short and sweet presentation on her application process.
Yeah, this is just an update and just to, again, another vote of support, but just to let you know, we're working in the Upper River. We just received an additional $50,000 grant from DER. We started with a grant 2 years ago where we did a conceptual study. And then DER funded a 50% plan, which has been completed. And this next funding for this next year is for that we just got from DER is to bring it up to 75% plans, which you can put out for permitting, and also do the MEPA permitting, which turns out to be a little more complex than it used to be. But anyway, that's for the next year. But Mark and I have been working on grants, because if we don't apply for grants now, it'll put out construction another 2 to 3 years. So we're applying for 3 grants. One is MassWA, and it's always a little tricky because the federal year is different from the state year, fiscal years. And so you kind of have to get the grants to lock in place. But anyway, we're applying for a Mass Wildlife grant, which would enable us to deal with, there are a lot of invasives up there now. And each year it goes by, the invasive issues are much greater. So the idea is we would clear the invasives, and that would be next year. We'd apply for this grant now, but that would come through in this next fiscal year. And then we're applying for CPA funds to help with the construction. And also the big grant is like a approximately $1.8 million grant to NOAA, which would cover all the other things, you know, final plans, the rest of the permitting, the oversight by the engineer, and then all the construction. That's it. And we'll be giving a presentation of the whole project to the Board of Selectmen Monday night if you want to catch it or look at reruns at some point.
All right, Mr. Byrd.
Kudos to Betsy. She has been instrumental in getting this whole Coonamessett River restoration project underway and gotten it this far. And I remember working with Betsy back during the days of the Great Bog Wars. And so we've come a long way, and it's a lot of a huge amount of credit is due to you, Bets. Thank you.
And also, I just want to emphasize how much this is a town of Falmouth project. It couldn't have been done without the Coonamessett River Trust and the 300 committees contributions, but it's lots of people contribute. It's been an interesting journey. So anyway,
Fascinating the amount of people that get involved in these things, you know, the groups and the organizations. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so we're looking for, we want to vote a letter of support for these grant applications.
Well, you don't have to do a letter because we're the ones who are applying. It's the Conservation Commission who's applying. Just need a vote of support.
I make a motion to have a vote of support for Betsy to continue on with the grant process.
And Freitag will second that.
All right.
Betsy, if you get a quick question for Betsy, if you get this 1.8 million from NOAA, how many millions will you have procured through grants for restoration? You up to like 3 or 5 million now?
Well, the first for the lower river, it was $4 million in grants. Well, $5 million in grants, including the Coonamessett Greenway Heritage Trail and the Gateway, which I always include because it's one of the things that the people who review the grants like to see is that it's being used by the public. There's lots of public participation in it. So it's been nice. Most people who talk to me are really happy about what's been done so far. And, you know, it's always everybody, we all know, and all of you who work in construction know that there's kind of a phase where people are horrified when you start work in an area. But like I say, you be a little bit patient and then things evolve nicely.
That's really fantastic. Thank you, Betsy, for all your work.
You're welcome.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote our support. Betsy, you shouldn't vote on yourself.
No, I should not.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye twice to make up for Betsy. Kevin.
Good.
Oh, Brian, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Melissa.
Freitag, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. You have our support. Thank you for your
Thanks, Betsy.
continued efforts for the Coonamessett. All right. Last motion.
Move to adjourn.
Maury has a question.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
It's not. I was just going to ask that maybe we could ask the engineers, because Steve brought up a really good point about the marking of sites. And they just, every year they get worse and worse. It used to be we had a big orange sign, you know, the address on it. It's almost like they want it to be obscure so that the neighbors don't see it. But it's really hard for us when we're not familiar with the neighborhood when we drive by and I mean, they even went, remember when they had the white signs for a little while and we thought it was real estate signs? But it used to be an orange spray painted, you know, stuck out on the road where you could see it with a flag on it that said, you know, for Concom or ZBA or whoever. And I just think that Steve's right. It's really difficult. I'm starting to, you know, have to search for places with their signs out front. And that's all. And then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We can send them an email tomorrow reminding them of the requirement to have their sites marked so the commission can find them easily.
The proper staking.
Yes.
And proper statement, yes. Thank you.
And I'll second,
Yep.
I'll second the motion to adjourn, and I'll say Gladfelter, aye.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Hello, Hawkseye.
Frog guy.
That and I. Thank you, Mark.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a great evening,
Everyone.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Feel better.